Hello, this is Mark again with one final video from newspaper articles and clippings that I found of interest either over the years, going back to my first two books 23 years ago, or from my last book. This video is about four articles from 1968, 1972, 1976, and one that has no date on it, but I believe it's from the early 1980s, all referencing the Hodag for those folks who are interested. So I will begin with this first one, which is a very brief article called K-12 School Bell, Rhinelander Daily News, December 13th, 1968. It features a photo of someone with a Hodag that was going to go up in the school gym, and the article reads, "The competitive spirit of the Hodag will make itself apparent in many high schools this weekend, beginning with the basketball game with the Evergreens this evening at Everest and the RH Swimmers at Beloit." So apparently it was a Hodag that was made for travel and not for display. On Saturday, the spirit of the Hodag will be carried to Janesville by the Rhinelander High School swim team, the varsity debaters at Eau Claire, and the wrestlers at Ripon. Pictured with a reproduction of the Hodag, the artwork of art instructor Richard Marco, is one of Rhinelander High School's cheerleaders, Dawn Lacrosse. Well, that is one reference. The second one is from November 28th, 1972, Rhinelander Daily News. The article is written by E.S. Hurd and is entitled Our Famous Hodag, Fact or Fantasy. I think I have the whole thing printed here. If I don't, I will mention that at the end. Don't look now, but I'm sure I saw some kind of a dragon in back of us. Admittedly, dragons aren't a common sight in our jet age civilization. However, this family of summer visitors, as they unpiled from their vacation-loaded station wagon, did see a dragon-like creature glaring at them. This dragon was one of the many replicas formerly affixed to light standards along downtown streets in Rhinelander. The Chamber of Commerce will confess that these quote-unquote dragons were displayed as tourist attractions. The summer visitor is excused when he mistakenly refers to these as dragons, for they aren't, they are Hodags, and Rhinelander lays undisputed claim to being the home of the Hodag. But what, the tourist demands, is a Hodag? First, one thing should be clearly understood. No resident of Rhinelander, at least those well versed in Hodag lore, will claim that these fearsome-looking beasts are still on the prowl here in the North Country. Unfortunately, the Hodag, like the dodo bird, is no more. The Hodag is described as being a hairy animal, varying in color from dark gray to raven black, about 7 foot long and 30 inches high at the front shoulders. Its arched and dinosaur-like back, which incorrectly suggests it to be some kind of a dragon, bristles with a dozen gleaming white horny protrusions, which is referred to technically as a corneus dorsum. Fierce-looking tusks project from each side of the beast's vice-like and bone-crushing jaws. The fossorial claws on the short, muscular fore and hind legs are long, needle-sharp, and menacing. Because of a similarity of features, and especially the structure of its ponderous claws, the Hodag frequently has been confused and erroneously identified with legendary beasts of the past. Sketchy reports of a strange and unidentified beast were made by the more sober lumberjacks back in the early pine logging era. Then in 1896, a man of the woods, Eugene Shepard of Rhinelander, persistently pieced together some of these undocumented reports and contributed to making an identification of this creature possible. Although Shepard was handicapped by a lack of scientific training and background, he nonetheless was held in esteem and came to possess an abundant first-hand knowledge of the Hodag. Many stories have been related about the Hodag, and in constant telling and retelling, truth and fiction have become so entangled that it is difficult to separate fact from fantasy. One fact, however, has been authentically established, that the range of the Hodag was confined to the general proximity of Rhinelander. No report to date verifies the existence of the Hodag other than in this lake region of northern Wisconsin. Mystery shrouds the origin of this unbelievable looking creature, There are some who insist that the Hodag was one of nature's escapees from the ice sheet, which last swept over Wisconsin. Fragmentary evidence gives support to this belief. The fossorial claws of the Hodag is believed to have been a scientific adaptation for burrowing into banks of ice and snow, and these snow burrows were believed to have served as nests and hibernation dens for the Hodag. Since the regression of the last ice sheet, it has been contended that the Hodag, through environmental adaptation, came to rely on hollow pine logs for its burrow and place of hibernation. And following the logging of the pine forests, as is so often the case in natural history, the complete destruction of a habitat marks the doom of the dependent species. Just why was the Hodag restricted to the Rhinelander region? Here again, only a hypothesis can be made. It has been theorized that after the ice sheet receded, the Hodag, a dull-witted creature, became immobilized in this area of lakes, which resulted from glacial action. Strong ancestral instincts may have conceivably created a bondage on the beast and thus held it a captive species of this region. There has been some speculation that the Hodag became largely dependent upon aquatic life. The fact that the Rhinelander region is situated in the greatest concentrated lake area on the continent, together with the vast pine forests which surrounded the region, is supporting evidence of why the Hodag was isolated and restricted into the Rhinelander area. Although the Hodag, the beast of the forest, has become extinct, the name still persists and flourishes here in the North Country. The Hodag of 1972 is no longer regarded as being a beast of the wilderness, but rather symbolizes the athletic teams of the Rhinelander High School. As is customary with things pertaining to the unusual, doubts are created and cast long and varied shadows. And so it is that the summer tourist, after viewing the mounted specimen of a Hodag displayed at Rhinelander's Logging Museum, invariably asks, was this creature actually real? The answer to this is perhaps best explained in the descriptive nomenclature which only recently has been given to the Hodag, Pseudodinosaurus macromalagenaceus shepherdi. Underneath the article is a picture of our famous Hodag, an oddity of nature which some believe is an escapee of the Ice Age. The Hodag is found only in the remote wilderness area, with its range restricted to the environs of Rhinelander. Although the beast is no more, the name Hodag continues to live in memory, and tourists find the tale interesting as they visit Rhinelander, home of the Hodag. The third article is a little more piecemeal and is missing some things, but it's from April 21st, 1976, from Jack Corey's scrapbook. And this is about Gene Shepard having fun naming the area lakes. It's a little bit less about the Hodag, but indirectly. It often has been reported that Eugene Shepard's maps were so accurate, they were accepted in courts of law without objection. While there is no question he could draw the correct outline of a lake without removing the trees to find the shoreline, he was a miserable speller. And I can account for that also in the three letters I have um, from the early 1900s. This is apparent from going through his famous plat book for Oneida, Vilas, and part of Iron counties. For the most part, the shapes of the lakes he drew in his book can be recognized from the shapes of lakes in modern maps of these counties. But in many cases, his spelling of the lake names has changed over the years, and many no longer have the names he gave them. Gene was a great hand to name lakes for people he knew, including school teachers that he liked. His plat book contains many lakes named for relatives or friends, but these lakes no longer bear the names he gave them. He named a lake for himself, and it's still Shepherd Lake. He named one for his first wife, and it's still Lake Mildred. But his Ruth Shepherd Lake, now shown as part of Tomahawk Lake, this is 1976, and his Ruth S. Lake have disappeared from later maps. His Jesse Langdon Lake became Little Bearskin. His Harry Ashton Lake now is Curry Lake, and his Collins Lake became Garth Lake. Jessie was the first white girl born in Rhinelander, daughter of Mike and Flora Messer Langdon, and wife of Dr. T.R. Welch. Harry Ashton was the Western Union operator here many years, C.C. Collins was a pioneer lumberman. Certainly Shepard knew all of them. It seems likely that among the nearby lakes he also named were Sweeney, Oatmeal, Leafy Earl, Hodag, Jenny Barnes, Woodcock, and Sure Shot. In his playbook are two lakes named for Tim Lennon. Today's maps show one as Chain Lake, while the other now is called Tim Lynn Lake. For many years, Shepard worked for Goodyear Lumber Company and probably is responsible for a lake in the western part of our county being named Goodyear. Obviously, it was named before there was automobile tires or a Goodyear blimp. Although its pages are coming loose from their binding, one of the original Shepard plat books printed in Milwaukee from his drawings has been lent by Charles Gibson to Jack Corey after considerable promising and pleading. Charlie obtained the book from Charles Peterson of the Old North Wisconsin Agency, which preceded Estabrooks Insurance. Many of today's named lakes were small and by Shepard listed only as ponds. There was no Rainbow Lake or flowage at the time he drew his maps. Flanner Lake, I think that's supposed to be Flannery, was so named, but Velvet Lake has no name on his maps. Shep's plat book shows no name for McNaughton Lake, later called Helen Lake, but does show a sawmill village and Bradley and Kelly's narrow gauge log railroad on the east side of the lake. That gauge was Shepard's spelling, Gage. Here are some differences between Shepard's plat book and today's American Legion Forest official map. His Chain Lake now is shown as Echo Lake. Range line became Aldridge. Swamp Lake on his drawings now is Nokomis Lake. Silver became Clear. His Pickerel with two L's is Pickerel with one L. Magdalene is Madeline. Gilmore with O-U-R is Gilmore, M-O-R-E. Doherty now is Dorothy. Kewasakogan is Kagan, K-E-W-A-S-A-K-A-G-O-N. Muskalounge is Muskalunge. New Man is Lumen Lake. And apparently what he termed Black Lakes became two sisters. Shep named one lake Lute Wheeler for a Wauwatosa attorney who developed Wheeler's Island at Three Lakes, but Wheeler Lake later was known as Starvation and now is Arbutus Lake. Thank goodness. Shep's book and modern maps show a lake in present American Legion Forest named Hostrat and spelled that way in both cases. I, Jack Corey, can find no explanation of that name. The nearest I find in old records is Charles Hoogstodel, a St. Mary's priest. Jerry Rusk Lake, so named probably by Shep for Governor Rusk, now is Blue Lake. In the following list, all in the present American Legion Forest, the first name shown is on Shepard's plat book, and the name in parentheses is from the official state map. Dan Robinson became Carroll Lake. Netzel, Netzel, became Buffalo. Mud became Nowai. Curran became Spider. Caton became Bird. And E.O. Brown became Burnham. Most other lake names in present American Legion Forest bear the same name as in Shepard's plat book of many years ago. And then there's a note here that says, Mrs. Joe Schooley said, I forgot two of Gene Shepard's contributions to our mapping, Wind Pudding Lake. And I can barely read this, but I want to say Edna Hogler Lake. I do remember where I got this. This was from the Rhinelander Historical Society back in the 90s. I made a copy of this article. Joe Schooley was an early business owner, Schooley Forbes Hardware. And Wind Pudding Lake, I believe the access to Wind Pudding Lake was created by one of the Daniels, either the first Daniels, who was a doctor in the area and who was involved in business, or his son. And that was a lake my family spent time on when we were young. And finally, the last article is entitled Hodag Origin Stirs Up Monstrous Rift. and some will remember this from many years ago. Whether racing through the swamp or snoozing against a tree, the Hodag gets people's dander up. Sure, it smells a bit and has an annoying hunger for the family dog, but people in Rhinelander aren't about to let Michigan jump their claim to the mythical beast. Indeed, the governor of Wisconsin intends to have a word with the governor of Michigan about it. The Hodag, as everyone in Rhinelander knows, is a beast of Wisconsin's swamps. A cross between a mastiff and a dinosaur, it is said to stand about 3 feet tall with spikes up and down its back. No one disputed Rhinelander's claim to the Hodag until this spring, when a magazine in Michigan reported a change of address to the Upper Peninsula. It makes people's hair stand on end around here to hear that kind of thing, Mayor Joseph Bloom of Rhinelander said. That's ridiculous, added Kristen Adams-Wendt, assistant director of the Rhinelander District Library and a collector of Hodag lore. The Hodag is rightfully ours. The Hodag was domesticated, if not discovered, skeptics would say fabricated, by a timber worker, Eugene S. Shepard, in 1895. Mr. Bloom says Mr. Shepard used to saddle up a Hodag and ride the swift but malodorous creature to nearby towns. One time, Mr. Bloom relates, Mr. Shepard was astonished to meet a Hodag and its rider on the road, only to realize later that his Hodag was so fast he had passed himself on his way there. The Hodag is recognized in the Encyclopedia of Monsters, published in 1982 by Daniel Cohen, as a monster of the Wisconsin woods that cannot lie down since it has no joints in its legs. It leans against trees when it sleeps, according to Mr. Cohen, so the best way to catch one is to cut a deep notch in its favorite tree and wait for Hodag and tree to topple come nightfall. Rhinelander's claim to being the Hodag's habitat was undisputed until a column in the Michigan Natural Resources magazine suggested that the beast originated near Bruce Crossing, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula. That didn't set well in Rhinelander, where the high school football team is the Hodags. The Hodag is also seen on banners on downtown lampposts, and a carved replica is in the Logging Museum. Police Chief Tony Paris issued a Hodag alert not long ago because of the mysterious disappearance of several white bulldogs, the creature's favorite dish. Residents of Rhinelander have asked Governor Anthony Earl of Wisconsin to do something to secure their claim to the Hodag, perhaps by putting it on the state's endangered species list. They gave the governor a pair of Hodag pins, one for Mr. Earl and one for Governor Blanchard of Michigan. Michigan's claim to the Hodag certainly does seem to be a lot more tenuous than Wisconsin's, Mr. Earl said. He planned to give Mr. Blanchard a pin, or possibly the needle, at the meeting of the Council of Great Lakes Governors this week in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin. Ohio's Governor Celeste also is attending the conference. Thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it.